Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here, site super moderator for Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com and also the main host of the Avatar Online podcast. And I'm here today with my next Korra episode review for Book 2 Spirits. And today I'm going to be reviewing Beginnings Part 1 and Part 2, the 1 hour premiere that aired on Friday. Now, I apologise for, I suppose, getting this up so late. Basically, it was a situation that I just kind of completely didn't feel like I could properly talk about these episodes like Saturday morning like I would usually do, just because there was so much to them. And so I kind of just decided there that I'm actually going to do the podcasts before my review for this one, just because I want to know what I'm talking about going into my video review. So yeah, I'm in the unusual position of having both podcasts up for both episodes already. If you're interested in listening to them, links are in the description. I think myself, Troy, and Kelly are on part 1, and it's about an hour and a half long where we discuss part 1. And then part 2 is myself, Troy, Kelly, and Rich, and I think we talked for about 2.5 hours about part 2. So like 4 hours of like beginnings content through the podcast, where we talk about basically every single scene. We go through it all scene by scene. Definitely worth listening to if you want like super in-depth analysis on the show. But yeah, anyway, my review. I absolutely adored these episodes. These were just so well done. And I think if you've followed my channel for any amount of time, you probably know that one of my favourite things to talk about in Avatar has always been speculation about origin of the Avatar, bending and all that sort of stuff. I had hyped these episodes up to an insane amount, and they didn't disappoint, and I think that makes them a huge success for me, that they didn't disappoint, and in fact blew away any expectations I actually had. I was almost convinced about certain things based on like videos that I've put out that this has to be how like this happens. This has to be how the origin of the Avatar happens. But it was very different than I expected, and I was just so in the end glad that it actually was different than I expected, because it worked so much better. I'd actually go as far as to probably say that these are my 2 favourite episodes of Avatar ever now at this stage, including Avatar The Last Airbender and other Legend of Korra episodes. I think they were that good. Now, obviously it's this case where like I need to go back and probably rewatch Avatar The Last Airbender again, and like Korra again, like all in a row, including these episodes, and then judge it. But right now, currently, I think these are my 2 favourite episodes. But at the very least, my favourite 2-parter ever in Avatar. Far and away, because just as like 2 episodes basically telling a contained story of the origin of the Avatar, with about 2-3 minutes of Korra linking it into the rest of Korra, it worked really well as a standalone thing and as a link into the rest of the season. So it really hit every nail on the head that it needed to for these episodes. So let me get into some specifics on them. Beginnings Part 1, I suppose, isn't quite as epic as Beginnings Part 2, but it makes sense that we actually see Juan before he starts that journey to become the Avatar, before he even like encounters like Rava and stuff like that. It made sense because we get to see what he's like before he's on this journey to becoming the Avatar. And what I really liked was that you see potential in him straight away, that this guy like wants people to be treated equally. He wants like equality on this kind of line turtle city that he lives in. He doesn't want these elder chews to be the only ones with food, weapons, power. He wants equality and like balance. So straight away you see that potential in him, but he's very rough around the edges with the fact that he kind of steals and like makes it kind of a nuisance of himself in the city, and maybe doesn't go about it the right way. But immediately after like stealing, he doesn't take any of the food for himself. He gives it away to his friends, and he gives the last bit of food away to animals. So this is a guy who respects animals, he respects nature, which is different than most other humans in this time. So straight away you're presented with him as having the potential to become the Avatar that we know. And then obviously he comes up with the plan, steals bending, and basically becomes the first person to basically live the rest of their life as a bender. So that's interesting as well. So he's not just the first Avatar; he's the first like bender, not non-temporary bender in a way, and the first to master the true art of firebending from the dragons as well. So multiple kind of firsts for Juan as a character, and then he meets the spirits, and you get presented to the human spirit conflict, which is a big thing in this episode. That's ultimately the thing that Juan resolves in his lifetime, is the conflict between humans and spirits. And he does that, by he lived most of the start of his life with humans, and then he actually did live like 2 years in the wilds living with spirits. So he knows both sides of the equation now, and that's the way it's kind of presented to us, that technically the spirits have invaded the physical world. We find out in part 2 that it's because of Vatu opening the plane between the two worlds, but fundamentally the reason that humans at this stage are so kind of aggressive, so out to protect themselves, is because the spirits have got them penned into these specific cities around the world, and they're very protective, and that's why the Line Turtle has to protect them and give them these powers. And that in many ways it is the spirits' fault that humans have to disrespect nature, because they can't just go out and like take a little of what they need. They have to like go out and hunt for the like whole population, and you kind of understand the both sides of the argument. Like humans are kind of coming across as disrespecting nature, but they kind of need to do it to survive because of the kind of situation that the spirits have put them in, and you see both sides of it. And it's only through Juan's friendship with Ai that really the two sides kind of start to see each other, like potential in each other. And I suppose that's another thing that makes Juan like the perfect person to be the first Avatar. He has both sides there. He lived with spirits, he lives with humans, and then then comes the big meeting for him, meeting Rava and of course Vatu. And what I really enjoyed about this whole story was that I'd always set up for myself that the origin of the Avatar came from this monumentous decision between the spirits and some humans, that they needed to have this being that's part spirits, part human, to be the kind of bridge between the worlds, to be this kind of person of balance in the world. But the fact that it was actually like the Avatar began because of a mistake. Juan made a mistake. He then made a promise to make this mistake right, and then a friendship developed between him and Rava. That's the origin of the Avatar right there. It's nothing. While it is epic, it's not this spirit decision. It's just the response to a mistake that someone made, a promise, a friendship, and a bond that develops between Juan and Rava. And it's really emotional as it kind of goes on, that you really see how eager Juan is to kind of make amends for what he's done. And over the course of time you see both him and Rava develop, which I loved. I love the fact that this all-powerful spirit of light, peace and balance in the world got character development. And that character development came in the fact that she had no respect for humans and constantly said that humans shouldn't meddle in spirit affairs. And I like this, that we saw Juan like sticking up for himself, that humans and spirits are living in this world at the same time, and so it is the affairs of both. And that through like Juan's selflessness, she began to learn to see potential in humans and developed like an actual bond with Juan, to the point where she helped him, master all four elements, gave him some of her power, and eventually got to the point where they began to actually like bond together. And in the end, they're permanently bonded forever. And that like epic line, "We are bonded forever," and the harmonic convergence and stuff like that. It's really well done, and I absolutely loved how it was done. And then there's the whole mythology stuff of bending. Originally started from the Line Turtles, and all land turtles are energy benders, but they can only grant certain elements and stuff like that. We saw the origin of the Fire Nation, the origin of the Air Nomads, and just the fact that like it managed to explain so much without just being 44 minutes of explanation. It came across as an emotional story, character development, and it worked really, really well. We got an explanation for why not every bender can bend multiple elements, and that the only reason one became like the first multiple element bender was because Rava like stored the elements within her and then gradually gave him the power as he learned to master and contain that much energy within himself. And then, you know, this story, like, there's so much development in this. Like, going from the end of part 1 to the, like, final 5 minutes of part 2, you see Juan and Rava's relationship go from no friendship, no real connection there, to, you know, Rava saying, I never thought I would see such nobility and courageousness in a human, and Juan being the one to kind of walk into the battle for the fate of the world to help her, and then, you know, just seeing the sheer determination of Juan in that final battle with Vaatu, and then we also see during the harmonic convergence the complete moment of the origin of the Avatar, when the Avatar spirit Rava completely merged with Juan, and that's how the Avatar came to be. Seeing the Avatar state for the first time was just fantastic to see, and it also explained, you know, basically where Unalaq's been in this, kind of going through the spirit portal. He's probably been to this plane between worlds, visiting Vaatu, and that kind of sets in place what the plan is, more or less. And then after that, you know, just pure epicness from Juan, to see that the big thing that he accomplished in his life was bringing somewhat of balance between the spirit and the physical world by sending all the spirits back to the spirit world and helping man to respect the spirits. But what really shocked me and just completely got me, like, from an emotional standpoint, was the fact that war then broke out between inhumanity, and Juan died before the world found peace, and that was just something I did not expect him to do at all. To have the first Avatar die with the world at peace. Yes, he accomplished an incredible amount sealing away Vaatu and bringing peace between the two worlds, but the fact that his own world wasn't at peace when he died was just tragic. And, you know, we'd seen Juan be the one to be optimistic all his life, and in this one moment when he's like his last moments, he's the one being kind of pessimistic. I failed, it's over, if only I had more time. And then we see Rava kind of has learned from Juan over the course of their time together, in fact, and says that we'll be together for all of your lifetimes, and we'll never give up. And it's just like, there it is, the start of the reincarnation cycle. Juan dies knowing that the kind of fundamental goal of the Avatar will go on, and like he has that moment of hope just as he dies. It's just this beautiful moment, and like for the show to be able to do that with these two characters after only introducing like Juan about 40 minutes ago and Rava only about 20 something minutes ago, it's just really well done, and it's just fantastic. And then even in the core side of the story, they managed to do a reasonable amount in the few minutes they had, setting up that she needed to reconnect with the most deepest part of her like Avatar memories, and then by the end, like, we've got so many answers, so many questions, so many reveals, so much new stuff, and then they hit us with, this is why bison still exists in the world today. Our island of the Fire Nation, has had a herd of sky bison since the 100-Year War. That's why bison still exist. It's just, this episode had a little bit of everything. It even had great continuity and reveals in the present day story, and Korra now has a enhanced respect for her role as the Avatar. She now knows, I think, how crucial it is that she do things, and knows kind of that she needs to shut down the portal. Like, I could go on for just so long about this episode. I had to rush through everything just to kind of say what I said now, but is there anything else I'd like have to mention? Continuity. As I've kind of said before, the one worry going into these episodes was that continuity would be kind of upset, that there was a huge like continuity minefield that they kind of had to walk around with. Like, they've only mentioned a few things about the world back then and like stuff really far into the past, and just a few important things that they had to avoid, and I think they did it really nicely. They managed to reveal more about it and answer it like really well. Like the whole thing of like firebenders, first firebenders learning from the dragons are the ancient sun warriors, and like I suppose Juan isn't technically an ancient sun warrior, but he was the first to learn from the dragons. That origin still kind of counts, and then you don't know, like, okay, so the people of the Fire Nation that we basically saw the origin of, they probably then, their civilization developed, the ancient sun warriors came to exist, and that's how that happened. The air nomads didn't seem to be involved in that war, so their tattoos probably developed from what they were back then into the arrows that we know today through learning from the Sky Bison, who naturally have that arrow on them, and the same probably applies for the other elements. And then stuff like Oma and Shu must have come like after Juan's time, learning from the Badger Molds for the first time. There's not really like much continuity stuff that like is up in the air. Maybe the Line Turtles line of like in the era before the Avatar we bent not the elements but the energy within. Maybe that's a bit like retconned now, but it still for the most part works. It's just a little bit kind of odd trying to fit everything in together with that line. Like, we saw energy bending, we saw Line Turtles bending, but they should have mentioned something more, I think. But other than that, it worked well. The only, I suppose, major continuity kind of thing I have an issue with is still the whole 10,000 years for 1,000 avatars situation, like making the average age of an avatar 10 years old. I'm not really sure how that works that much, but I assume we'll get an explanation for that at some point in time. And then the only thing that I felt maybe the episode needed to explain was perhaps the tree in the world between worlds that the harmonic convergence occurs in. I felt they needed a little bit of an explanation of like why this tree is like the perfect prison for him, and why it's even there as well. Why that's the center of this yin and yang shaped area. It was just really, it was just like perfectly fitting how the Avatar came to be. It was, one story started off basically with him splitting two spirits apart. It basically, he became the Avatar by then combining with one of those spirits who became his friend at the place that was in between the human and spirit worlds, so there's balance in that. The world that he did it in was shaped like yin and yang at an event called harmonic convergence, harmony coming together basically is what it means, and it was just absolute perfection in that moment where the Avatar came into being. And these episodes' importance can't be understated because they really do change a lot of how you think about stuff that we've already seen in Avatar now. That this basically makes Aang the first ever Avatar to gain the power of energy bending. You really understand kind of now how, even more so, how crucial the role of the Avatar is in the world, given what the first Avatar did. And especially with the way Juan died, I think it really makes you understand Korra's position, that he hasn't got a lot of support this season. She hasn't been backed up on a lot of what she wanted to do this season. And I think through seeing Juan kind of dying on his own, he was with Rava but no humans around him, it really shows you that Korra was kind of alone a lot of this season, and she didn't, like, especially when like Mako didn't back her up, it really showcased that, like the Canyon Guide from the Great Divide said it's lonely being neutral, and it just really makes me feel kind of sorry for Korra. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say for now. There's probably a whole ton of stuff I didn't talk about, but as I said, everything we talked about, basically everything on the two podcasts, which are going to be linked in the description below. So yeah, amazing episodes. Just before I end, I'll just talk about the scheduled videos coming up. Tomorrow I hope to get out my episode review for the new episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The day after that, I hope to get out my speculation video for the guide, the next episode of Korra, which isn't airing until November 1st. And then Thursday, Friday, I hope to get out some form of a Pokemon video. Probably the first thing I'll do will be talk about the team that I used during the story, the 6 Pokemon I used there, because that's like arguably the most important Pokemon that I'm going to use. And then maybe Friday I'll get out a like general review of Pokemon X and stuff like that. But that's my main plan. So thanks for watching this video, and bye.